Today, Brussels is viewed, studied and approached as a multilingual metropolis. People look at the diversity within education, the street scene and communication in public contexts. In my feeling, sometimes it is somewhat forgotten that the core of multilingualism arises in the family. And in this short presentation, we want to discuss how multilingualism grows in these Brussels families. When you visit the museum, you will also notice how both the migration languages and the new languages to learn are quite a challenge for the people who arrive in Brussels. To start, I want to draw an image of the evolution we have seen in Brussels from bilingualism to multilingualism. For about 20 years now, research into the language use in Brussels has been done, creating the so-called language barometer by a sociologist, Rudy Janssens. The language use in Brussels is charted by means of face-to-face interviews with a lot of people. I think about 2,500 people were interviewed to ask them how they use the different languages in Brussels. In the first language research that was done in 2001, we find a limited amount of data to regard the language use within the families. At that moment, in 2001, we can see that about 25% of the families were bilingual. And they made a difference between two kinds of bilingual families, the so-called traditional bilingual families, 15% of the families at that moment using French and Dutch, and the new bilingual families, at that moment about 9–10% of the families using Dutch or French, and another new language often brought to Brussels by migration. In the most recent language barometer, made up in 2018, we see more than 100 languages are spoken in Brussels. In the same period, 2019, Perrine Humblay did research in Brussels, and so that about 50% of the Brussels children speak 2, 3 or even more languages at home. So today we can say that it's not an exception anymore to live in a multilingual family, but I think by now nearly the majority of the children will hear and speak and use more than one language in these Brussels families. The change we see is in different areas. So what we see more bilingual and multilingual families in Brussels. We see more languages within one family, and in our work we meet a lot of multilingual families, and we also can see that the diversity of the languages really is growing. I like to illustrate this with an example of a family that came to us to have advice about the multilingual education they will give to their children, and to draw a little bit the image of this family. What can I say you? It was a Czech mother and a Portuguese father. They arrived recently to work here in Brussels. Between each other they speak English. Their families live in the countries far away. Their social network is English, and they also were reflecting about to choose for Dutch or a French school system to integrate their children when they were growing up. So you see, a lot of language is used to reflect about. I want to tell also something about the research about this topic of multilingual families. You can see that also as Brussels evaluated from bilingual to multilingual situation, it is also research, even international level, that has made this evolution. I show here two pictures. In the first, you see some titles of publications, but these publications are about 20, 15 years old. And you see all these titles are about bilingualism, or in Dutch, tweetaligheid. In the other photograph I took, you see some titles of more recent publications, and there you see that these researchers and authors are talking about multilingual education, trilingual education, meertaligheid. So it's really an evolution, not only in this city, but it's internationally given that you can see how multilingualism became more complex. Let's go back to the family as the heart of this multilingual citizens in Brussels. I have the experience that already the years 2000 schools were talking about the school language policy, adapting themselves to the multilingual settings in the schools. But also, only more recently, there is also research and projects about family language policy. So more and more there is a focus that we should sustain parents that will bring up their children doing this multilingual parenting. And if you see the strategies of these families, we will see that it's also changing. At the start, we had one parent, one language strategy. That means in a bilingual family, you had one language used by the father, another language used by the mother. Nowadays, it's quite more complex, because now the idea is that parents can use different languages in the family, that also one parent can use, for example, one language at home, another language when they are going to visit the family, and another language when they are going out with the children and on their way, for example, to school. And so it became more complex, and the advices that we give to parents are also different. When you talk about, or when you see these multilingual families in Brussels, of course, it's not only talking about how to manage all these languages in the family. It's very important to consider also the attitudes towards languages and towards multilingualism. Why is it important? There is done a lot of research, and we have seen that negative attitudes, when you are afraid to use a language, afraid to speak a language, then it can have a negative effect on learning that language. On the other side, when you feel comfortable using a language, even when you don't speak it very well, if you believe that you can learn it, then you will have more opportunities and the success will be bigger. So for us, for example, it's very important if we talk about with parents. We see a lot of parents that don't know Dutch or speak it only in a limited way, but sending them their children to a Dutch school. It's important to discuss with them that it's very important to have this positive approach, to make the children feel that they will be able to become a multilingual citizen, and that they will be able to learn these languages, and that they also as a parent are interested to learn the language better and better. We did some years ago a European project about languages and emotions, in which we worked with parents about this topic, and in which we made families discuss how they feel about the use of the different languages. Finally, we developed a digital tool in which people can make language portraits, and with these portraits they can explain how it is to use the different languages. And I would like to give you an example of a girl of 12 years old, Miriam, living in Brussels, using different languages, and what is her idea about it. So Miriam is 12 years old. She migrated from Italy to Brussels 2 years ago. And the language portrait she made, you will see that she has chosen light blue for Italian, and she places it in her heart. Why? She tells us she is still very homesick, thinking a lot about Italy, thinking about her Italian friends, and so Italian for her, it's still very important, and she refers to it as a color she likes very much, and she puts it in her heart. For Dutch, she has chosen a red color of the Red Devils. She put it in her head because she said, oh, I have to think a lot to speak Dutch, but she mentioned that she believes that she will be able to do it very well within a short time. In dark blue, she refers to French, and she says, I hear it a lot in Brussels, but I cannot speak it, I don't want to learn it, I don't like it. And finally, she referred in yellow to Spanish, just because she finds it a very beautiful language. So here you see a young Brussels citizen developing her feelings towards the new languages and the languages she already knew. Another aspect about multilingual families, except of learning and feeling, is of course identity. The fourth language barometer and survey that was done in 2018 showed that the majority of the Brussels residents consider bilingualism and multilingualism as part of their identity, of who they are. There is done also a lot of research about multilingualism, bilingualism, and identity, and the concepts you find here are hyphenated or multi-layered identity. So people refer to their identity, for example, for this child, for Miriam, it could be, I'm a little bit Italian, I'm a Brussels citizen, I'm a European person. So in her identity, she will create references that also are linked to the languages she uses or that she learned. We often experience also in our talks with parents that for them this is an issue that they are not so sure about. They express doubts whether their children will have a balanced identity. They are afraid of confusion sometimes, and especially they are afraid when they experience negative reactions in the environment towards their mother tongue. To give one example, I met a mother with a young child, a Moroccan family, and the child said to her mother she didn't want to talk Arabic anymore when they were outside of the home, because she had felt that people criticized them because of using their mother tongue. So identity is an important issue. In a new European project we are doing now called Planting Languages, we talk a lot with parents, and I want to conclude this talk about multilingual families with two quotes from families we met in depth interviews, not from Brussels but from even other countries, to see how similar experiences are. So the first mother is a Slovak mother in Germany who says, "My mother tongue is a cocoon. I enjoy using this language. It is my past, my family, my roots. I would like to pass it on to my children." So for this mother, Passing on her mother tongue is passing on who she is and her identity. Another mother, a Turkish parent in the Netherlands, says, if someone asks me what my mother tongue is, then I say Turkish. That's the language in which I dream. But I think that in the future, Dutch will be the mother tongue of my children. So this young mother already is aware that she is referring in the first place to Turkish as a mother tongue linked to her identity, but there will be a big change for her children, and that in the future, when they become youngsters, probably they will refer to Dutch, and that will take a bigger part in who they are than her mother tongue, Turkish. So you see, acquiring language, embracing, integrating languages and multilingualism are an important part of people and of citizens. It's an important theme, an important issue when we consider the social cohesion of a city like Brussels. And families will be always the heart of these matters. So that's why today I wanted to draw a little bit attention to these families. If you are interested in this topic, you can find more information on the website of this European project, Planting Languages. And I'm sure if you go to the museum and you are reading all the stories of these families, and you can pay a little bit extra attention about who they talk, about their languages, about their mother tongues, and their struggles eventually to learn the new languages. Thank you.